What up, what up, what up, what up? It's your boy P. Skip. Welcome to the best half hour of your entire Tuesday. You know what time it is. It's time to get into his course. My squad with me, T-Mac.
Hola.
Chili Will.
Gracias, amigo.
Let's do this. Wow, we got a great show for you today. Listen, I'm going to start off with Proverbs 11. Verses 1 through 3 in the Amplified, and it says this, which is the main scripture: a false balance and a dishonest business practices are extremely offensive to the Lord, but accurate scale is his delight. I'm going to drop down to verse 3, and it says, the integrity and moral courage of the upright will guide them, but the crookedness of the treacherous will destroy them. Here's why I brought that up. Recently, former Miami coach Brian Flores filed a class action lawsuit against the NFL. He's stating that, for the most part, breaking it down, the Rooney Law is a bunch of Rooney poot. He's saying that he was told by Miami's owner that I want you to lose games, and every game you lose, I'll give you a bonus of $100,000. He refused to lose games and end up winning. They started off 7-1, and he ended up winning the last 8. He ended up going 8-1 after that.
Yeah.
The other piece was he was offered or he was interviewed by the Broncos. The Broncos ownership and leadership executives came into the meeting late and half drunk. Didn't even take him seriously. The other piece is he got a text from Bill Belichick saying, congratulations on the Jets job. And he hadn't even interviewed yet.
I think it was the Giants.
The Giants. And he hadn't even interviewed them yet, only to find out that it went to the wrong Brian.
That doggone Bill.
I don't blame Bill Belichick for that. He's connected. He knows some people on the inside. He was calling his boy to say, hey, congratulations. Now, he's cool with both of the Bryans.
Right.
And so he just texted the wrong Bryant and gave the wrong information. That's not on Bill. What it does say is that Rooney Rule is bogus because you had picked who you wanted before you done all the interviews. And so here we go again with this false narrative of the African American getting a true, honest, fair shake in the NFL in the coaching ranks, because it's not the truth. And to me, you're dealing with a group of good old boys. I'm just being honest, good old boys who've always looked at the African Americans as them and it. And now I can't give you a fair shake, because if I give you a fair shake, then you can't be it anymore. You got to be one of us versus them and it. And so this has really been a blow for the NFL. Now, what I would like to see, honestly, is it not just be a one-man kneeling Colin Kaepernick type thing, that the coaches get behind him, African-American and white, the players get behind him. You know what would be the greatest statement for make all this stuff come to just be to an end? If the players say, we ain't playing in the Super Bowl. That would shut it all down. Because now you're not just messing with the owner's money in their pocket, you're also messing with sponsorship dollars. And so this has been real. Here's the thing. All of us knew this stuff was happening, but he just had enough evidence to prove it. And got a lawyer behind him. Now we want to see how this is going to turn out and turn around to be. Tim, I'm going to throw it to you because I know you been chomping at the bit since you heard this.
Yeah,
so,
man. It's so much. I mean, I think first it's a microcosm of the Black experience in America, at a time where people are poo-pooing about, whether critical race theory exists or not. Here we have yet another example of race coming into play and the Black person being adversely impacted because of that card being played. Not that he tried to play it. That's the deck that he had been dealt. And so on the one hand, it's very, very unfortunate that you had a number of Black coaches that have already demonstrated their capabilities with the X's and O's, their brilliance in terms of schemes, as well as their ability to bring nuances to the game, because many other players, or coaches, they played the game before. So to say that you don't have enough, talent in the pipeline to be able to bring on a Black head coach is part and parcel of always having the people of color, in this case, Black folks, be the labor, but they can't be the leadership. Here you have the NFL that's over 50%, maybe 60, 70% African-American, yet the leadership positions, be it ownership, be it head coaches, be it GMs, be it coordinators, offensive and or defensive coordinators, hardly any of them are Black. And that flies in the face of what the evidence has been. Last year's Super Bowl winner, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, has a Black offensive coordinator, Brian Leftwich, who also was a quarterback in the NFL. The previous, champion, Kansas City, has Eric Bieniemy, another Black dude that's the offensive coordinator of the greatest offense in our modern era. They went to 4 straight AFC championships based primarily on their offense. So when the Sean McVay, who I didn't hear about before he became coach of the Rams, or our very own Matt LaFleur, coach of the Packers, when they became head coaches, they were coordinators, beforehand. So they had the so-called pathway grease for them to do the onboarding. But if you never give us even the shot, after showing them, proving that we definitely deserve it, because neither one of them cats that I just named last had as much success as those Super Bowl winning, hardware gaining brothers that I talked about. So you have the folks that have the chops, they've demonstrated, they've paid their dues, they've done everything that you said is the roadway to get to it. The only thing one can conclude is that, hey, there tends to be some racist tendencies, because when they put the resume together and they happen to be Black, they don't get the same shots in the same amounts of frequency as their white counterparts do. You can't attribute it to not hardworking. You can't attribute it to not knowing the X's and O's. You can't attribute it to not being winners, because they are. So all those check marks have been crossed out. What are you deduced to? It must be the Blackness, because that is the also common denominator in all of this. So when we talk about remedies, hats off to Brother Flores for coming forth to blowing the lid off of this. And also Hugh Jackson, former coach of the Cleveland Browns, who also said, hey, I was offered and, offered paid to tank games as well. And I got proof. So if they want to come for the smoke, I got all the smoke and I want it all. So that's great. The class action piece, maybe some other folks can come out of the closet and jump on this piece as well, because I'm sure that this is only the tip of the iceberg of how much they've seen in terms of racial animus and racial bias of this ilk. What I will also say in closing, you at the floor of the wheel, is that what it also does in the larger scheme of things is gives us a bird's eye view of just the size and magnitude of racial bias and how it's been interwoven into the tapestry of every fabric of America, including professional sports. So as a remedy, like you said, Pastor Skip, hopefully Brother Flores isn't just a one-man gang, but the rest of us can jump in as well. So if the players want to boycott not just the Super Bowl, but the players say, we're going to sit out the whole season, all Black players, until y'all get some Black coaches, we're going to demand that you do it, and we're willing to make the sacrifice. It'll be a movement as opposed to just a moment, which will require collective sacrifice and collective support. What I mean by that is that, hey, every Black person in America, all 200 million of us, or however many millions of it is, we gonna all give $100 or whatever the dollar amount is to this fund. Black billionaires, Oprah, the other guy from the hedge fund guy, we're gonna put a pot together. So if these guys have to give up their job, miss some paychecks, we'll tell we got this fund for you that your family won't be destitute and you can still do this because we're trying to show something. The Montgomery bus boycott, it was everybody saying, ain't none of us riding the bus. And for those of us that live further away from work than others, Miss Clarice or Brother Johnson is going to pick you up and going to take you to work. So you ain't got to catch the bus and you ain't got to miss no work days because you are taking this stand collectively, quote unquote, for the culture. Now, we can go ahead and begin to do that. That is where we're going to have real impact, because what this is showing us is it's not enough for us to just try and get a seat at the table. In some instances, we're going to have to build our own table. And this is ownership. So the owners are saying, hey, man, we own this thing. This is our pet project, and you can't make me do nothing because I own this. Obviously, they don't have the moral fiber nor the patriotism to include all Americans. So that means there's something else, some other sort of agitator or intervention needs to be done. And I believe that Black people have enough collective power, enough collective purse, enough collective gumption to pull something like this off, but it will take a universal and group sacrifice as well as universal and group support for this thing to really go as far as it can. But Brother Flores is really, he got the match to the wick though. He bringing a blowtorch to that joint. And we can, if we all get in this and make it a movement and include some of the other, white allies or those that really want to be down for the cause as well, we can turn this thing into a straight up inferno that becomes a full-fledged movement that forces the hand of the owners. Other than that, it just might be a story that might do some feel good for a minute, but then again, might fall back to the old status quo. But I think that with the racial reckoning that has happened with the George Floyd piece, all the talk of diversity, equity, and inclusion, and all the things that are coming out now in these revelations, John Gruden losing his job and there being some consequences to janky actions, this might very well be a situation where the revolution is televised. Will?
Man, hey, I want to say this to you, brother. The word that you used in the beginning, a microcosm.
Yes, sir.
Of America.
Yes, sir.
That's exactly what this is.
Yes, sir.
This doesn't just go on in professional sports. This go on in everything. A lot of times, white people think that we're supposed to be the help. We're supposed to be the labor. And that's because of the history of our existence in this country. We was brought here for free labor.
Mm-hmm.
Let's put it out there. The reason why we was here was for free labor. And then after they couldn't get free labor, we became cheap labor. Mm-hmm. And they want to keep it that way. Mm-hmm. And they keep us at odds with white people because this the aristocratic white folks who feel like this. They ain't too fond of the poor white folks either, the poor uneducated white folks. They don't want them around. They don't want to deal with them. So this is what we're going to do. We're going to pay y'all to keep the Negroes away from us. We're going to make y'all police officers and wardens and sheriffs and all of that stuff so we can spend this money that we shouldn't get because we overcharging everybody. That's going to be your role. So that keeps us at odds with them. They get to ride on their yachts and eat their caviar and life goes on. But now, like you said, Tim, I think stuff done hit the fan. Mm-hmm. One of the big differences that I've noticed in my life about Black people and white people is white people are just more organized. And they're more organized because they have a history of doing things longer than we have. They've been in business longer than us. They've been developing longer than us. They've been doing these things longer than we have. So we're not as organized as them. But Tim, if what you were saying about us getting organized and putting a pool of money together, and the Black athletes say, okay, this when we gonna do it. We're gonna play the whole season until we get to a certain point in the season. Why? Because we do want to collect our checks and be able to save some money and put something away and prepare. But on this day, if y'all can't fix this and get this together, y'all got to get some more field Negroes because we're gonna boycott. Yeah, exactly. If we had enough organization to do that, Do you know how powerful that would be, not only for professional sports, but just that whole microcosm that you're talking about? And it's getting to that point. It's getting to that point. But we need some leadership. This is where leadership is needed. Somebody that we all trust and respect. We need to get together with our different coalitions and determine exactly how much money this gonna cost, what we gonna do, and this will be the boycott, the Birmingham boycott of 2022, because it might be time for another major event like that to get us even closer, just like that event got us some ground. This might get us even more ground for another 40 or 50 years, where we may have to have another one of these to then be on par, achieve equity. But this is a time. This is an opportunity for us to do just that. When you start talking about, people talk about, hold on.
You know, one of the things that I thought about with all of this, and thank you, Will, we'll see you when you get back, but one of the things I thought about is, okay, maybe you can't, protest. You can't go without your money like that. Okay. Well, we ain't gonna play any of the nationally televised games. So any of these big games that's major, we ain't gonna play in them. So you still got to give us our full bread, but we pulling a Kyrie. We only playing part-time.
Yeah.
But that's another way to say, okay, I'm still getting my full bread, but all them big ticket games that's the NFL on CBS and all that, we're not playing in any of those nationally televised games. We ain't playing in no Monday night football games. None of that. We only gonna get the games we only gonna play in the games that ain't televised nationally. We can't do nothing about the local game because all the local games are televised, but the national ones, we're not doing that. That could be a way. But I also thought about, okay, one of the things I understand is it's economics that affect them.
Yes.
They don't care about you being organized as long as your organization doesn't affect my economics. But when it starts to affect economics, then we got to have a different conversation. Then we got to talk about how do we fix this, because you're digging into my legacy now. And my grandkids need to eat off your touchdowns. So here's what we got to do. We got to fix whatever this is. And if I just give you if we give you 3 more black coaches, will you be okay with that? Because it's going to come down to some serious, some backdoor conversations that are really going to be about what do I got to do to make y'all shut up and play? Just shut up and play. Troy Vincent was interviewed. No, was it Troy or Jay? Which one is
Troy? Troy,
Vincent.
I think.
Right.
Troy
Vincent was interviewed about, this whole situation. And he said, and they said, that's not a problem up here in our office, because it's all kinds of equity in our office. It's the owners that don't want to do it. Yeah. So you got the NFL brass saying we're doing it where we are. But when it comes to individual teams and ownership, the owners are saying, well, I'm glad y'all are doing it. Y'all can be the poster child. We'll keep putting y'all up front and advertise what y'all doing, but we're going to do what we want to do here. And it's really sad when he said it is a fight we've been trying to fight since I've been here, and we haven't gained any ground on it. Yeah. That they don't want them. They'll give them an exec job before they'll give them a head coach job, because for some reason in their head, well, hey, you may be able to lead an organization, but you can't lead men. I don't want you leading my men.
Some of that, Pascal, if I can jump in.
Yeah, please do.
On the one hand, you have the historical legacy and vestiges of slavery. Had the overseer, and you had the labor, as Will had pointed out. The other piece to that is when we talk about being able to change one's mindset. Oftentimes in that black-white scenario, in that matrix, it's like, well, hey, with black people, you guys have to make the adjustment to your mentality. You don't want to have psychological slavery. You still can achieve. Well, we weren't the only participants in that dynamic. So what white folks have to do is also change, meaning that your relationship with black people ain't no superior, inferior in every scenario. So you have to be willing to work for somebody where the boss is black, like we've had to do for a long time. And for many people of white persuasion, particularly as those get up in ownership and things like that, the notion of having to take orders from somebody that's black is a problem. I've talked to business owners who had some employees that were white. This is anecdotal, so this is just not, a blanket statement, but it's anecdotal for sure, where there was some trouble that the individual had working for a black person in churches. When you have a multicultural church, oftentimes you can see a white pastor that has a number of African American and other people of color, but for the sake of this conversation, black folks, particularly I'm talking about, in their congregation. But multicultural churches that has a black pastor, you don't necessarily always see a whole lot of white people. Now that has to do again with this notion that, hey, the head person in charge is black and the buck stops with them. And I don't know if I'm comfortable with that, because that dynamic people have swam in has been the inverse of that for all these years. Now we come to professional sports where the head coach, the GM, the individuals that make the final decisions, offensive and defensive coordinators, everybody on that squad has to answer to them. When that person is black, hey, that's a different story. All we're saying is hey, you ain't even got to be colorblind. Because if you saying you don't see color, that means if I'm a person of color, when you see me, you don't even see me as a person, since you don't see color, because I'm colorful. You can be one that sees color, just don't treat me in an adverse way when you see it. That's all I'm asking for. So if we have qualified candidates, if we have qualified coaches, if we have people that not only have demonstrated that they can jam in these cerebral leadership positions, but also have coupled that with jamming on the field, how do you not see that as a qualified candidate, other than you have some racist, bigotry, prejudicial, biased tendencies in your mindset? All we're saying is change that, player. We'll help you change that if this is about opportunity. If not, call it what it is and say, hey, we haven't changed since the Civil War and we still have that. Don't masquerade as being one that's open for a meritocracy. May the best man win. Okay, I done demonstrated I'm the best. Give me the victory.
Right.
Or stop saying that, because you false flag it. And similar to Nehemiah in the Bible, when he had to go back and rebuild the walls of Jerusalem, he said, tell you what, we got some haters out here. So we're going to have in one hand the bricks that's building up these walls back. In the other hand, we're going to have a sword. So we're going to still fight for justice. Right. And we're going to build at the same time. And I think as the black people, as a collective, that goes back to that collective sacrifice, collective support. And each one of the different families in the book of Nehemiah had a section. Your part is this. Your part is that. Your part is that. So I ain't got to do Will's part. I'll do Tim's part. I'll let Will do Will's part, because Will can do his part better than Tim can do Will's part, because that's Will's part, not Tim's. Pastor Skip can do Pastor Skip's part. So if everybody does their part, now the collective can come as a whole. And now you got to go ahead and fight against this force, as opposed to you trying to pick off somebody that's a so-called troublemaker and make him a martyr, a la Colin Kaepernick.
Right.
Well, Tim, what you're saying is so true. But when we start talking about white privilege and white entitlement, this is nothing new. When we were talking about who the leader is going to be and who's going to be in charge and so on and so forth, we shouldn't even have to have a Rooney Rule. Us having to have a Rooney Rule in the beginning is an indication of the type of problem we have.
Facts.
Right. That's the type of problem we have. When we have to have people that get interviewed for a position.
Policing them.
Yeah,
Policing them.
just to check the box off, just to make it look like we doing something right. It's like affirmative action. Affirmative action ain't for black people. Affirmative action is for white people. Because if y'all would do what's right, we wouldn't need affirmative action. Affirmative action is trying to force y'all to do something that y'all should be doing already. Right. And then you want to make it seem like that black people getting some type of benefit. No, we're not getting any kind of benefit, because what we're supposed to be getting, we're not getting. And that's why we have to make legislation and force people to do it. The other thing is, you guys are pastors. I'm not a pastor. Who knows? I'm young. Maybe I'll be one day.
Come on, Will.
You still got time. I still got time. We see the
evangelists
in you.
but this is what I'm saying when it goes back to the Bible. Both of you guys are very aware of geography. Both of you guys have set your feet on the same soil that Jesus Christ walked on. You guys have been to Israel and been to the Middle East.
Right.
And you know how hot it was in the Middle East.
Yes, sir.
And you know doggone well that it ain't too many blonde hair, blue-eyed people coming from the Middle East. So why do we have to make Jesus look the way he looked? Because we wanted to be in charge. That's why. Mm-hmm. And some of this stuff is built around Christianity.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Some of it is built around that. So people think that because we look more like Jesus, we're supposed to be in charge. We're supposed to be given directions, even though that's no characteristic of Jesus at all.
No.
But we couldn't let Jesus look the way we all know he looked, because he was in Israel.
Mm-hmm.
He was in Bethlehem. He was in the Middle East. So we all know what people who live there look like. So why do we have to change all that? It's part of the insecurity that we have in who we really are. And we don't feel good unless we have someone that we can step on, or someone that we can be above. Because competition really ain't our strong suit. Now, I'm not condemning all white people. What I'm saying is, we wouldn't be where we are now had it not been for good white people, period. Mm-hmm. Slavery wouldn't have ended. The Holocaust would have been way worse than what it was if it wasn't for some good white people who said, this ain't right. I'm a Christian and I'm gonna stand up and fight for these people because they can't stand up and fight for themselves. That's how all the progress came in those two particular instances. I don't like talking about the Holocaust too much, because you could say one or two words and people, get it confused on. They get it misconstrued. So I ain't gonna talk about it too much in detail, but you guys are familiar with the Holocaust. Y'all familiar with slavery. So y'all know what I'm talking about. It was some good white people who said, hey, I can't sleep knowing that this is going on to my fellow man and my brother. And I'm gonna take action to try to put some changes there. I'm saying that to say this. That same thing should be going on in the National Football League. Some of these white guys who play in the trenches every day with these brothers, they need to speak up too and say, man, this ain't right.
Facts.
Right.
This ain't right. So we need good white people.
Allies.
As much as we need an organization in order for this to go down.
Hey, speaking of gotta go, we gotta go. But let me finish with this scripture again. Again, Proverbs 11:1 says, a false balance and dishonest business practices are extremely offensive to the Lord. But an accurate scale is his delight. So meet us here next week. Same bat time, same bat channel, right here, Joy 1340 AM, 98.7 FM, the #1 faith-based sports talk show in the entire world, Into His Courts. Until next Tuesday, have an amazing week. Hey!